Hey folks, do you ever walk into a store and have no idea what kind of wine you want to get? Me too. I mean, you try to look smart, you're browsing, you're like, what's this quality? And you have no idea what you're talking about. Well, you don't need to waste your time anymore because Naked Wines can help you out. This podcast is sponsored by Naked Wines. Naked Wines is a wine club that directly connects you to the world's best independent winemakers so you can get world-class wine delivered straight to your door. Use our code MAJORITY for the code and password at nakedwines.com to get $100 off your first order. That's 6 bottles for just $39.99. I got, I think, a Syrah from Naked Wines recently, which was phenomenal. And then I brought another red to a little housewarming thing, and everybody loved it. And make yourself look smart and sophisticated, like you know what you're talking about. And the wines are excellent, and you get such a phenomenal deal for them. Because Naked brings you amazing wine straight from the winery at up to 60% less than what you would pay in store. By cutting out extra costs like middlemen markups, winemakers can pass those savings on to you without skimping on quality. It's allowed me, given me the confidence to try different wines, not just doing what I'd typically done in the past. And I love that I have a different variety and it expands my palate, and it's at such a low price. Naked Wines has been around for over 15 years and backs over 90 independent winemakers around the world to make the wine you love to drink. Now is the time to join the Naked Wines community. Head to nakedwines.com/majority, click enter voucher, and put in our code MAJORITY for both the code and password for $100 off your first order. That's 6 bottles for only $39.99 with shipping included. That's $100 off your first 6 bottles at nakedwines.com/majority and use the code and password MAJORITY for 6 bottles of wine for $39.99. Again, link down below in the description wherever you're listening to or watching this, and at majority.fm. To get 6 bottles of wine for $39.99, head to nakedwines.com/majority and use code MAJORITY for both the code and password. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jose Luis Granados Ceja will be with us again to talk about the U.S.'s attempt at regime change in Venezuela. And later in the show, Dr. Nagham Abu Halima and Dr. Nour Abu Halima, co-founders of Pal Humanity Sisters, they joined us earlier. We have a pre-recorded interview to talk about their immensely important mutual aid work in northern Gaza. Also on the program, Trump's approval rating keeps breaking records. He's at minus 18 net approval per YouGov, lower than it's ever been, driven in large parts due to negatives on the economy and cratering support among young people. Meanwhile, the Fed cuts rates for a second consecutive meeting amid slowing economic growth. Nvidia hits the $5 trillion market value threshold. That's over 15% of US GDP. Does that seem sustainable to you guys?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. That was the right answer. Trump and Xi reportedly agree on a 1-year truce on the trade war that Trump started which means China brought the United States to heel.
Uncle. Who could have foreseen this?
And of course, Xi is being smarter than Trump by making it seem like it's a mutual thing. Yeah, in public.
Gracious Victor.
He's beaming on Air Force One right
Oh,
now.
I'm sure.
I mean, I've seen it. There's footage.
He's so easily manipulated. That's one thing Kamala got right in the campaign. The Senate votes 50 to 64 to nullify Trump's tariffs on Canada, with 4 Republicans breaking rank. Murkowski, Collins, both Kentucky senators, or at the very least Mitch McConnell's office, who knows if he even knows what's happening right now. The U.S. military has ordered the National Guard in all 50 states to be trained in riot control. Seems bad. Andrew Cuomo's financial disclosures reveal that he made $5 million working as a private consultant last year, but will not reveal his clients.
None your business.
Democratic candidate Kat Abou-Gazala is facing federal charges for protesting outside an ICE facility in Chicago. A police raid in a low-income neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro kills over 130 people, the deadliest police action like this in the history of the country. Hamas hands over 2 hostage bodies after Israel repeatedly breaks the ceasefire, or what they think are those bodies, because there's no way to tell in many instances. And lastly, in Sudan, paramilitary forces kill hundreds of people at a hospital. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. Apologies, we're a little bit behind. We had a scare, technically, and then it was fine.
There's an electrical storm.
Yes.
Going through our wires.
Yes, it's the Havana syndrome, or it's really just the rain outside, the torrential downpour. I was out for 2 days. I moved. Very, very stressful, very not fun. Could not find things like socks this morning, but hanging in there. I now should say, because people have reminded me that I keep forgetting to promote when I'm going on shows. I will be going this afternoon on the I've Had It podcast with Jennifer Welch. So stay tuned for that episode. I'm really, really looking forward to getting to talk to her. But let's start here with SNAP benefits. On November 1st, Saturday, 42 million people are going to lose their SNAP benefits. I saw this quote in an interview with Joel Berg of Hunger Free America, where he said that this is the greatest catastrophe for hunger in America since the Great Depression. I'm paraphrasing that a little, but that was what the headline was. He was interviewed or quoted in The Guardian on that. And there is a SNAP contingency fund that the Trump administration could tap into. It wouldn't cover the full month's cost of SNAP benefits across the country, but it would, at the very least, be supplementary.
Yeah, it would help. It's about $5 to $6 billion of $8 billion shortfall, which would be a lot easier for states to make up the remaining deficit if you tap into that. Not tapping into it is to use hunger as a political weapon. Exactly.
They're being quite clear about this. They're using the American public and their hunger as leverage over the Democrats. The problem is that the Trump administration's callousness on this very front is in part why Trump's approval rating is at the lowest it's been by at least YouGov's metrics in the history of his presidency. And he might have been lower after he left office after January 6th. People forget that was
the coup attempt.
The coup attempt was pretty unpopular, but at least in terms of like when he was active in his presidency, that is, I mean, he's immensely unpopular, and it's important for us to remember that. It's important for us to remember that people don't want to see tens of millions of people and families go hungry like this. There was a plan on the USDA website about the contingency fund that the administration deleted. They laid out a scenario in which the SNAP contingency fund could be tapped into, but then they found out that that was public and they were not going to do that, so they deleted it. And in response to this, there have been dozens of states that have filed a lawsuit trying to compel the administration to use these contingency funds in an emergency situation. And meanwhile, look at these optics. House Republicans have had a 6-week paid vacation because Mike Johnson doesn't want to have to swear in Representative Grijalva. 700,000 people don't have a representative right now because she would be the 218th vote on the discharge petition that would force the release of the Epstein files. So that is where the Republican Party is at right now. They are not working or doing anything. In part because Trump says, send the House home because I want the Senate to accept the bill as is. I don't want any renegotiation of this. But also because of that Epstein files piece. No, the House Republicans are going to have to come back. At the very, I mean, this November 1st cliff was what some folks thought would make some of these Democratic holdouts break. But I don't know if that's going to happen. And in terms of the politics of it, it shouldn't. We do have some states that are going to step up and try to fill the gaps. Obviously, you know, ones that are led by Democrats mostly. But this is on top of the one big beautiful bill, ugly ass bill.
Largest cut of of SNAP benefits in history.
In history. On top of that, 186 billion in cuts to this program that's been in place since the Great Depression.
And Republicans that are voicing concern about SNAP now, like Josh Hawley, voted for that bill.
Yep. He'll do every excuse to be performative, but actually do nothing to help people. That's Josh Hawley's mantra. Yeah. And then that's not even touching the fact that around 20 million Americans are about to see their premiums explode, the ones who are on the ACA marketplaces. And that's not even touching the gutting of Medicaid. This is an all-out war on the working class of this country. Here's a compilation that MSNBC put together of working mothers on social media talking about what it means for SNAP benefits to get cut like this.
I just finally got confirmation that food stamps is officially cut for next month.
About 2 months ago, I stopped eating dinner almost every night of the week so that my boyfriend and I could have enough food left over to have lunch the next day. This was before we were about to lose our food stamps. Mind you, we both work.
I don't think that we really realize the depths that this is, the damage that this is going to do, but the women, the mothers, and the families, but the mothers especially, who are going to go without meals so their children don't have to. I know that I will absolutely be one of those mothers.
But because we have children and because aftercare and before care is too expensive, I've taken a job that's basically minimum wage so that I can be there to pick up my kids. I cannot fathom what we're going to do without that food stamp money, because if I already couldn't eat dinner with that food stamp money,
yeah, I can't read part of that, but because it's sitting here wondering what families will do next month without food stamps. I work full time, have 6 kids and rely on them. I'm scared, sad, and have to act like everything is fine.
That's like so much of this country
That's
right
the
now.
caption, yeah.
I'm so tired of seeing people say like, oh, well, maybe if you had a job, you could get your groceries, or, you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't have to depend on stamps. I work full time. Thank you. And I do rely on stamps because guess what? It's not enough money in this economy for me to be able to pay bills and get stuff that we need and provide for my 2 kids. So yes.
Correct. It is capitalism's failure. And anybody listening to this needs to understand it is not your fault. It is the fault of this political system that has bought our political system.
Noel from San Francisco just IMs in. Right. Wealthiest nation in history. Disgraceful. That's it. Keep it
on stamps. Yeah. And I have a full-time job. So please know that people out here depend on stamps is not because we out here just mooching off the government. It's because we literally need that to provide for our family.
I work hard every single day. I get up every single day and clean houses, and I still rely on food stamps to feed my 6 children because the prices are so high. It's unrealistic to think about not having food stamps. Next month, I'm so terrified because 6 babies are always eating. Plus myself, I eat about 1 meal a day, but still.
Y'all, they not giving us food stamps next month. How am I going to pay my bills, feed my kids, plus Christmas coming up too? This shit is so effed up. To all the hardworking mothers, that's what the caption says there. She's crying. So, there you go. There you go.
And we're in this situation not just because Trump's a really bad guy, but because of things like the Senate. John Thune is a senator from South Dakota, a state that doesn't even have 1 million people, or deactivate and reactivate, that doesn't even have 1 million people. He's leading the hard line against these sort of things like, oh no, we don't need to pay vets. We don't need to do the SNAP stuff. Like basically holding the Senate hard line on it. He should not have, we need to abolish the Senate, is what I'm saying. South Dakota. I say this as a North Dakotan.
Go by the way of the House of Lords in the UK. Like they are a undemocratic institution. At the very least, we need to do away with the filibuster.
Yeah, exactly. Because Thune, it represents everything, even more as much as Trump. That's evil in this country. He's a goddamn Nazi. That's using food as a weapon here. And it's a joke that, and I say this as a North Dakotan, that places like North Dakota and South Dakota have as much power in the Senate as a state like New York or California. Yep. It's a fucking joke. And people should be ashamed of themselves.
That number of 42 million, it's actually almost equivalent to when there was a 50-50 Senate under the Biden administration. 50 Democratic senators represented 40 million more people than the 50 Republican senators. That's the undemocratic nature of the Senate that we're talking about here. And just to wrap this up, here is an example of the kind of, Republican response to this, because as I mentioned earlier, there are some states that are using their state funding to backfill on SNAP benefits. I believe it's Connecticut, I saw, Virginia, Vermont is another one of them, but not Oklahoma. Oklahoma has around 700,000 people in the state that rely on SNAP benefits. It's one of the most vulnerable states as well. A little under 15%, or it's like 15% of families rely on SNAP in the whole state.
A state with a massive amount of poverty, like leading the nation, terrible education, despite having a massive oil boom thanks to fracking.
Yep. Where's all of that going?
Into the pockets of the people that own Governor Kevin Stitt. And
then maybe like into the actual after effects, into the bodies of the people that don't see any of the benefits because of the pollution of this kind of extraction. This is the Republican Governor Kevin Stitt saying, I'm not going to dip into our $1 billion rainy day fund to help out here.
His net worth is $110 million personally.
Evil.
Cool.
Yeah, so the rainy day fund, it's close to $1 billion. It's 15% of our overall general revenue is kind of constitutionally how it's set up. It's totally maxed out, and then we have some other funds as well. But the to access the rainy day fund, it's set up in a way that you're only supposed to access it in a revenue failure, right? Well, we don't have a revenue failure. This is a federal government problem, not a state problem. And so to access that, the max you can access is $300 million, and it takes 2/3 of a vote of a legislature, so we'd have to call people back for a special session.
Do it.
And then how do we actually get it delivered by November 1st on those cards, which we don't have the access to do it. So that's what I mean by it's kind of complicated to deliver that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so complicated. It's complicated.
Never mind that other states are doing it.
Yeah, I don't want to work. That's what he's saying.
Do we have the Capitol switchboard number?
It's in every show note.
Every show note. I mean, like call your senators. I'll just read it out here. You can just look it up. But Capitol switchboard is 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. You can connect with your member of the Senate or with a member of the House of Representatives or your senator and tell them what you think.
Good luck finding Chuck Schumer.
Oh, yeah. Well, did you guys play that yesterday about him again refusing to endorse Mom Donnie? Maybe
No,
we'll
but I
play
have
that
it
later
here.
in the show.
Yeah,
He's a
That's right.
little worried about dodging questions about whether or not he'll vote for the Democratic nominee in the city where he lives. In a moment, we will be talking to Jose Luis Granados Ceja about the Trump administration ramping up a potential regime change war with Venezuela. But first, a word from two of our sponsors here. I'd like to thank OneSkin for sponsoring today's episode. OneSkin sent me the OS1 Face, a moisturizer and longevity serum, all in one. And the OS01i, their most concentrated formula to treat the delicate skin around the eyes. I've got sensitive skin. I get red at the drop of a hat. I need to make sure that I maintain my skin. And I've also been, in true New Jersey fashion, a little bit way too obsessed with tanning. I've moved to the spray tan phase and not trying to devastate my skin anymore, or the at-home rub-in one. People may not enjoy that, but it's the only way that I don't punish myself by laying in the sun whenever I can in the summer. And also OneSkin helps me out with that as well. Taking care of it, trying to be proactive, and the OS1i in particular, that formula that you put on your eyes, it's really gentle, but you can feel that it's moisturizing. And especially when the seasons are changing, you've got harsher air, your skin gets drier, and then obviously in the summer I got a little sun damage, and it's October, and I've got to recuperate. I need a little bit, more a consistent moisturizer. I really appreciate the OS1i for that very reason. And I've been using it for around 3 weeks at this point, and I've already started to feel the benefits from it. I feel a little bit more brightness, and I feel like the eye cream is probably the best eye cream I've ever used. And I've tried a few. Every formula is dermatologist tested, safe for sensitive skin, and NEA approved, delivering powerful results with skin health in mind. The packaging is great. You've got this reusable shell for the moisturizer, and it's just an easy couple of pumps. It goes on smoothly and easily. This season, don't just moisturize, support your skin at the cellular level with OneSkin. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code MAJORITY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off OneSkin with code MAJORITY. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please help us and tell them the Majority Report sent you. Try OneSkin today. We'll put a link down below in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Get 15% off OneSkin with code MAJORITY at www.oneskin.co. And lastly, sometimes searching for the right doctor is like a complex Mad Libs. You need a blank specialist who doesn't keep you in the waiting room for blank hours, who spends more than blank minutes with you in the exam room, who can actually help you with the blank issue. This is probably not the fun that you remember with Mad Libs, right? Well, ZocDoc makes it easy to fill in those blanks to help you find the right doctor for your specific needs. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click instantly to book an appointment. You can book in-network appointments with doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. You can filter for doctors that take your insurance, are located nearby, are a good fit for any medical need that you may have, and once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click instantly to book a visit. Appointments made through ZocDoc also happen fast, typically within 24 and 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. I am just amazed that ZocDoc isn't used even more frequently by people. It's pretty popular, but it's just so easy to see the calendar for your doctor laid out there with the appointment slots. The worst thing about going to the doctor or dentist sometimes is just dealing with people over the phone, the back and forth, the phone tag. Is the doctor's office closed on this day? Oh no, are we going to be able to get in contact with them? ZocDoc solves all of that for you. It's a great interface, And in addition, as I mentioned, you can filter for your needs and your insurance. I'd like to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's episode, and also for finding me my dentist that I actually like. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/majority to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/majority, ZocDoc.com/majority. Link down below in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Go to ZocDoc.com/majority and download the ZocDoc app to sign up for free and book a top-rated doctor. Quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Jose. We are back, and we are joined once again on the show by Jose Luis Granados Ceja, a journalist, staff writer with Venezuelanalysis, and host of the Venezuelanalysis podcast. Jose Luis, thanks so much for coming back.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Of course. So since we spoke, 4 or 5 weeks ago, there have been even more bombings of these boats off the coast of Venezuela in international waters. The death toll is now 57, 58? I'm losing track here, but just catch us up to where we are with this escalation militarily by the United States off Venezuela's shores.
Escalation is absolutely the right term. Things have gotten dramatically worse for the peoples of Venezuela, Colombia, and I would say all of Latin America. What we've seen is escalation after escalation after escalation. We had warned that this wasn't going to stop with Venezuela, and quite rightly, we've seen this now expanded against Gustavo Petro in Colombia for daring to stick up for the sovereignty of Venezuela, for the defense of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. So now we've seen this mobilization of troops, of ships, and all the rest of it, these strikes on these boats, first in the Caribbean, but now we've seen that extended into the Pacific, off the coast of Colombia. And it looks like some of the more recent ones are actually much closer to Mexico now, given the fact that Mexico search and rescue was called in after the second to last bombing that just happened, where they apparently identified a survivor. It's not clear if they were actually able to find that survivor, but Mexico dispatched a boat and a plane in order to try to assist in rescue efforts there. So what we see is this campaign is now taking place in the Pacific, in the Caribbean, close to Mexico, close to Colombia. This is very much now an aggression, not just against Venezuela, but of all of Latin America.
The Mexico piece is astonishing, given the fact that the United States and Mexico's trade relationship is key to the United States economy. And you've seen that Claudia Sheinbaum has had immense leverage over the Trump administration and brought him to heel. The only person we've seen kind of do that is Xi just 24 hours ago with this supposed trade truce, even though we know that it was really China that won out at the end of the day. What do you anticipate the Mexican government's response is going to be to this kind of action?
Well, so far we saw for the first time Claudia Sheinbaum express explicitly that she does not agree with these attacks. I think that's important precisely because of her standing, the place that she occupies here in the international community. She called the ambassador for consultations. Mexico and the United States have various working groups where they kind of exchange information and talk about this. And this happened and there was kind of a vague statement put out about, making sure that life at sea is protected. Mexico's position is very much based on a defense of international law and conventions. It said that it responded to this call for a rescue precisely because it is a signatory. And I actually think that that's the correct way to approach this. We have to be honest. We're dealing with a United States government that is acting in a rogue fashion. It has no regard for international law, no regard for its bilateral relationships, clearly is engaging in another regime change effort against Maduro. That I think, whatever doubt may have been in people's minds about that, I think has been clearly
they're saying
established.
It now. They are saying it. And they're saying, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they're saying that they're doing my favorite part of the story, even though it's so dark, is Trump announcing that the CIA is doing covert actions in Venezuela. It's not covert if you say it.
Exactly. And I think that's the sign, right? That they're doing everything. They're pulling out all the stops to engage in regime change, to try to oust Nicolás Maduro. There was a really interesting piece from Reuters about all of the secret kind of negotiations that were happening with this U.S. administration and the hardline reactionary fascist opposition in Venezuela led by Maria Corina Machado, how they were feeding them this information, trying to basically find the excuse. We know that during the Biden administration, the line that the White House used was around democracy promotion and that this is a tyrant and we have to do something about that because there's not a lot of, space inside of the Trump administration for that kind of language. They've shifted gears and now they're talking about drug interdiction and stopping narco terrorists and the rest of it. But to go back to what I was saying, I think this is why we have to put much of the emphasis on the defense of international law to really point out the fact that what the United States is doing is illegal, considering international law, but also domestic law. There is actually no basis, and we've seen some criticism even from the Republican Party. Senator Rand Paul has actually been really insistent on this, saying that, we actually have to declare war in order to be able to do what we're doing, which is killing people without due process. He rightly called it, as UN experts have called it, extrajudicial killings. Now, of course, his interests are different. I'm not saying that his necessarily is driven by an anti-imperialist imperative, but certainly at least pointing out the fact that this is illegal according to the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. law as well. The Congress has to be consulted, and unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of movement on that, obviously with the shutdown and the rest of it. But clearly we have, like I said, a rogue government operating here that seems to have no consideration for the most precious right of all, which is the right to life. They are extrajudicially killing people throughout the region now.
What is the kind of consensus understanding within maybe Venezuela or Latin America more broadly about the United States' interest in Venezuela and regime change? We know that it's for capitalistic purposes, and Maduro has long been an object of the eyes of neocons in terms of trying to overthrow him, and that's across the aisle, right? Like, we had Chris Murphy, I believe, admit that they tried to coup him on Twitter. So this is a story that is many years old at this point. But what would you say is the understanding amongst the general population in Venezuela and Latin America more broadly about the United States' involvement here?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is only the latest effort at trying to oust Maduro and Chavez before he passed away. So what is the mood on the ground? We recently published an article, a column by Clodovaldo Hernandez over at Venezuelanalysis, and I thought he summarized it quite well. So people are in a state of alert, but they're not falling into alarmism. You're certainly seeing an important mobilization of the Venezuelan armed forces. They have been training basically for this moment since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution with the election of Hugo Chavez, a military man himself, who changed the military doctrine in Venezuela to focus on the defense of the homeland in the face of an invasion by somebody like the United States. And so we do see that kind of movement. One of the more interesting things has been the response by the popular sectors. So, a lot of people try to paint this picture as if, Maduro is, universally rejected in Venezuela. And of course, that's not the case. There's still a lot of people who identify as revolutionaries and who are preparing and who are actually joining up with the militia if they weren't members already, engaging in arms training. So there is a heightened state, but also life goes on. Because this isn't new to Venezuela. Venezuela has lived a lot of efforts backed by the United States, by this far-right opposition in Venezuela, to try to change the government via insurrection, via coups d'etats, and now the latest with these military threats just off their coast.
And I want to turn to that domestic reality in Venezuela in just a second, but to stay a little bit on what you were saying about how they're not stopping at Venezuela, they're threatening other countries in the region. Do you see this as something that could potentially lead to an acceleration of Central American and Caribbean solidarity, which could really be another move that isolates the United States? I mean, it feels like that's the goal, but isolates the United States because of our insane aggression, open aggression in the region.
Absolutely. I think one thing that people in the United States should always remember is that Latin America has such a long and complicated and dark history with U.S. intervention, with U.S. imperialism, that this really does provoke the ire of the populations here. I mentioned Gustavo Petro, but also Lula da Silva, who have been critical of Maduro in the past. They have taken a very clear position that this is not acceptable and that they will defend sovereignty more generally. This notion that the area is a zone of peace is no small thing. This is part of the region of the world that isn't seen state-to-state conflicts in a very, very long time. And I think it's important to highlight that. And of course, it is provoking a reaction. I saw the leader of the Landless Peasants Movement, the MST, from Brazil state quite clearly, if they are attacked, we will organize internationalist brigades to go and defend Venezuela. I mean, there really is a mood. But of course, this is in a time where there is a lot of division in the region. I think the United States America First strategy should be read actually more as America in the sort of Latin sense of it, of the entire hemisphere. I think you mentioned China earlier. I think the United States has recognized the fact that it's lost the fight for global hegemony. And
yes,
so
there was a great piece by Ida Chavez in Capital and Empire, which I know that Venezuelanalysis cited, that I'd recommend people check out.
Absolutely. And that's another example of it. And so what does that mean? They're retreating back into their traditional spheres of influence, and they very much view Latin America as their backyard. As much as we detest that phrase here in Latin America, they do view it that way. And I think they do see Latin America as the place where they can kind of rebuild their forces in order to, in a future moment, dispute global hegemony again with their rival, principally China. And so because of that, we see them playing a great amount of emphasis on the region and giving favors to their allies, like we've seen with Milei in Argentina with this bailout, but then punishing their opponents. Mexico is the only one that's kind of have to balance this position of being a leftist government that normally would provoke the ire of the United States, but precisely because what you said, because of the leverage Mexico has, we don't see that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more pressure being put on Mexico to kind of fall into line to try to have this region be at the service of the United States. And as you said, it's very much capitalist interest. What do they want? They want the markets here. They want the resources here. They want access to the cheap labor because that's how they feel that they can get on stronger footing to dispute global hegemony. So it's a very, very dangerous time in the region. And one of the things that I've been really stressing is that the response has to be regional. There has been very worrisome statements, for example, from the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, obviously Noboa in Ecuador, Milei. All of the U.S. allies in the region are clearly positioning themselves as friends to the end of the United States. But the United States doesn't have friends. It has interests, and they very much will betray these same allies down the road, as they did to Juan Orlando Hernandez in Honduras. And so I think these leaders here who are trying to align with the United States are playing a very, very dangerous game. And I would call on them to shape up and to get on the correct side of history, which is to take a position to say that an attack against one country in Latin America is an attack against us all. We cannot go back to these days of gun-blow diplomacy. That is horrible for the peoples of this region, and we're already seeing the consequences of that. And so if we really want to think about the best interests of this population, of all the countries of the region, the worst thing they could do is align with the United States, because this would establish a terrible precedent. We cannot allow this to happen. You can think what you want about Maduro, but we cannot tolerate a violation of sovereignty, not to mention that the regional fallout, I think, is actually quite difficult to predict. If the United States goes down this path, let's say they do strikes inside of Venezuela, that's going to provoke a terrible amount of unrest. If they go so far as to try to assassinate a president, that is going to create undoubtedly a civil war inside of Venezuela. People aren't going to accept the leadership of Maria Corina Machado, much less if it's imposed by gunboat diplomacy as they've been doing. And it would create a huge migration crisis. People would obviously flee the situation given the circumstances or the situation that I'm trying to present here. And so people really need to reconsider what is happening in this and hopefully push back on that basis, not to get distracted with, whatever is, convenient politically in the moment for this or that leader, but really understand that there are principles at play here, which is international law, defense of sovereignty, equality of states.
And who are the primary villains in their complicity with the United States here, besides the obvious Bukele?
I think I would point to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who has actually broken with a long tradition of that country in defense of sovereignty. The CARICOM and the Caribbean states, these are small states, right? We understand the principle of equality of states before this, right? But nonetheless, they are far stronger when they act in unison and coordinated fashion. And she's actually even speaking out against CARICOM, against the Caribbean Community, this regional organization. And so, and it's come at a cost. She recently had to accept the fact that Venezuela had to take a decision to cancel the gas project in the Dragon Field because the closeness to Venezuela. It was a joint project. It was very important to Trinidad and Tobago's energy sovereignty, to its ability to actually increase government revenue. And that's now been suspended as a result of the position it's taken. And it's unfortunate that the people of her country are going to pay the price, but it shouldn't be surprising to anybody. Venezuela was actually very generous with the Caribbean community back when it was in a better financial situation, providing cheap loans, cheap oil, engaging in kind of a bartering system, all of this, right? If Venezuela could, they would obviously want that. They've talked many, many times about relaunching Petrocaribe to try to, assist these countries that don't have access to energy resources. All of that stuff is at risk as a result of this because of wanting to align with the United States. The other person I would obviously also point to is certainly Noboa. Noboa is right now seeking to change the Constitution in order to allow for the presence of U.S. military on Ecuadorian soil. That's really dangerous as well. I mean, it's ironclad. There's no room for doubt in Ecuador's Constitution, but he views it as a barrier. And so you can see that they're trying to take advantage of the situation to promote these policies that most of the population in this region is just not in favor of.
In Venezuela, there is this figure, and you mentioned her earlier, Maria Corina Machado, who they're trying to set this administration, the Trump administration, Marco Rubio in particular, is trying to set her up as the new Juan Guaido, the new U.S.-aligned capitalistic figurehead that can to be the face of regime change. And they're doing this openly. We played a clip a few weeks ago of her on Don Jr.'s podcast speaking about, like, we have to open up Venezuelan oil to capitalism. We have to make money. Like, she's saying exactly what they want to hear, and maybe even more crudely than would be politically advisable, given the fact that these are her aspirations. But she has been in the U.S. kind of think tank circles. She's been working with Rubio for years and years. What is the status of her attempt to be the coup figurehead in Venezuela?
Yeah, we have to be clear about who she is. She's a far-right figure. She has always been on the far right in terms of the political spectrum in Venezuela, and she was actually mostly a marginal figure for the longest time. Her prominence grew as a result of her positioning herself as the voice of the opposition, and there are various oppositions inside of Venezuela. There are some that obviously participate in elections and take their seats inside of the Congress and have always tried to kind of play by the rules of the game. She never has. She's always been in favor of the coup d'etat in 2002 against Hugo Chavez. She denies it now, but she literally signed the sheet that tried to dissolve the constitutionally elected government of Hugo Chavez back in 2002. She supported the insurrections of the Guarimbas, they call them, in Venezuela in 2014 and 2017. She's obviously was a backer of the whole Guaido thing. So she's never been a democratic actor. Obviously, her group decided to contest the elections most recently. She was banned from running for various reasons, namely kind of her positions as a result of these kind of antagonisms that she's engaged in against the government. And I think what we're seeing certainly with her being selected the Nobel Peace Prize winner this year is very much about that, about positioning her as the leader. I think there is a certain acknowledgement that, if they do conduct an assassination, right, these kind of strikes against the leadership of Venezuela right now, that it would lead to chaos. And so they're trying to elevate her position and her notoriety precisely so that she can kind of fill that void if and when something like that does take place. But I think they're underestimating how much there would be a popular rejection of her assuming the leadership. And of course, all of her proposals are unconstitutional. Venezuela also has a very progressive constitution. Of course, if she were to successfully oust the regime and try to install herself, I wouldn't be surprised if you would see exactly what she's trying to lay out. She's trying to, talks about a 100-day plan, about all the things they would do. Obviously, all of these would likely run into, the very entrenched bureaucracy, the armed forces, right? I don't think she would have an easy go of it, but they want to convince the world that it would be easy. And I think that's part of the logic here. That's the United States. I think certainly Trump is afraid of putting boots on the ground. He's tried to sell himself as a peace president, but the truth is, if they did try to do this, it would likely involve some kind of presence of U.S. armed forces on Venezuelan territory. That's the only way they would be able to control the situation on the ground there, because she wouldn't actually, despite their efforts, to be able to kind of consolidate power in her own hands. It would be a very terrible situation for the Venezuelan people above all.
Lastly, what would you say, or how would you explain to an American audience that hears, most of what is heard about Nicolas Maduro is he's a dictator, he's undemocratic. Obviously, the undemocratic part, there's truth to that, right? But there's also less truth to it than the undemocratic parts of like what the US wants to impose. That's true anti-democracy. Like, how would you explain to people Maduro's reign in Venezuela to undercut maybe some of the US talking points on Venezuela?
Venezuela, since the election of Hugo Chavez, basically since '99, has been subject to a relentless attack from the United States that has never been comfortable with Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro following him, particularly after the radicalization of their revolution, where they did take a firm anti-capitalist socialist position and started reorganizing their economy. Of course, they suffered a lot economically as a result of the collapse of oil prices. At one point, the 2008 financial crisis hit them hard as well. But really, principally, a lot of what you see in Venezuela is precisely the result of U.S. interference. The declaration of Venezuela as an unusual and extraordinary threat, the sanctions against the government, basically the blockade of their oil industry. Because of the dominance of the U.S. dollar, Venezuela can't sell its oil in the international market in the way that normally states can. They have to do it through intermediaries, and they have to do it at a discount. So a lot of the problems you see on the ground are due precisely as a result of these efforts to oust Maduro, to kind of apply the strategy that they used in the 70s against Allende, to make the economy scream, and so that the population would rise up against the government themselves and do the hard work for them of ousting a government that's uncomfortable and it obviously plays an important role in the region. And so to these other criticisms as well, I would say first of all, we have to respect the institutions of Venezuela. The institutions of Venezuela made a determination. And I think particularly when you compare that with the opposition, which has cried foul in every single election it hasn't won, they are the boy who cried wolf. Why should we believe them now? If you ask me, I refuse to believe the Venezuelan opposition and their claims, because they've always cried foul every single time that they have lost. There were two occasions where they won. The institutions of Venezuela recognized their victory. They were able to take their seats. They also won a referendum on a constitutional reform. But of course, in those instances, they didn't cry fraud because they did win. And so this is a narrative. This is a narrative aimed at regime change. And of course, the situation on the ground in Venezuela has become quite difficult for low-income people. But that too, again, is the result of all of these efforts to make the economy scream. Exactly. Right. And so I think if we're going to talk about that, I think the focus has to be on why have we made this population suffer so much? If you didn't have any of that, you wouldn't be able to have the kind of the ground laid that they have now, accusing them of driving the population into poverty, of engaging in, authoritarian tactics. All of that starts with U.S. imperialism in Venezuela.
It really is remarkable how the United States has managed to, under this administration, combine two of the greatest international policy failures in the past 100 years. Regime change wars and the war on drugs. Like, melding these two failed strategies into one is, I mean, that's how you can describe this piece of foreign policy, I think. But that's just me. Jose Luis, thank you so much for your time today. I also want to plug, you have a podcast on Mexico with Kurt Hackbraith. How do you say that?
Kurt Hackbarth. It's soberanía,
Sorry.
which is the word in Spanish for sovereignty. And it's an English language weekly podcast covering Mexico and Latin America more broadly. So if you're interested in learning more about what's happening here in Mexico, definitely invite you to check that out as well.
Yes. I really want to listen to that. Thanks for reminding me about that, Matt. Also, of course, with Venezuelanalysis, and you can also check out the Venezuelanalysis podcast. Jose Luis Granados Ceja, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Quick break, folks, and we will play the pre-recorded interview that we have with the Pal Humanity sisters. We had some disruptions with some Wi-Fi. Obviously, they are in the north of Gaza. Part of why we wanted to do this interview was because it's very difficult to get in contact with people in the north of Gaza.
I mean, to be honest, their connection wasn't much worse than Zoran's was yesterday.
Okay, so fair enough. But it was, we will put a link to their, to Pal Humanity down below in terms of providing medical care up in the north of Gaza. There's not, the UNRWA being defunded has basically left there to be no infrastructure. And
one of the great crimes of this century.
So we'll put a link down below, but here is the interview with those two sisters. Quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back, and we are joined now by Dr. Nagham Abu Halima and Dr. Nour Abu Halima, sisters, co-founders of Pal Humanity, a non-profit organization providing critical medical care and humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Welcome, doctors, to the show.
We are too happy and too grateful that we are here in the Majority Report. It's our pleasure to talk with Emma and to be here. And thank you for your trust and for everything. Thank you guys for raising Palestinian and Gazans' voice.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that you are in the north of Gaza right now, which is a very, very difficult situation. Your organization has been providing medical care, essential items in the north. Can you describe right now what the situation is like in the north of Gaza?
The situation is very bad right now in the northern area, especially. It's all devastated, demolished completely. So villages right now are demolished and destructed completely. Like I'm from the northern, like the extremely northern area, which is like in Beit Lahia. Till now, we are in the yellow zone, so I can't get back and go back to my home, to my village. It all is under rubble, unfortunately, is all demolished. Before war, it was like all greenish, it all like farmland, strawberry, olive. It all was so nice and pretty good. But unfortunately, after the last entry of the Israeli forces, they had hit it very bad and all like it's a bunch of rubble right now, unfortunately. The streets, you can't know the streets, you can't know the villages, there is no any infrastructure, there is no water, all is sewage. It's not suitable for life anymore, unfortunately. That's why we had decided in our last entry here and getting back into the northern area to help and to add the water stations because like there is no any water stations, there is no any water infrastructure. So people hesitate somehow to get back to the northern area because there is no any water access to many villages right now in the northern area. Besides with the medical clinics are too, unfortunately, we are in need and shortage for the medical clinics. Like we are really in shortage. There is no any medical clinics here in northern area. And if there, it will be like too crowded because like the need is too high and there is no any medications. And unfortunately, most of like 95 of the buildings right now in Gaza are completely demolished or like half demolished. That's why when they are getting back, they are living in tents. And living in a tent, it's not too healthy. It led like to increase in plenty of diseases, skin diseases, rashes, diarrhea, upper respiratory tract infection, and all need medications. Until now, the borders didn't enter like what they are saying, the aid, the trucks, as they had said in the news. It's all a propaganda to me, and it's all like fake news. Nothing is entering like it's been saying. The people is still need a lot of aid. The people need a lot of companies to work on ground to help those people on ground. That's why I'm too supporting those who working on ground, because like we know our community needs, because we are living right now in Gaza, and when you live between the people, you know their needs more than anyone else.
And you mentioned the yellow zone. Can you explain that to people a little bit, and why over half of Gaza people cannot return to their homes, and how Israel is still controlling that part of Gaza?
Okay, so after the peace of 2025, they had said that, okay, before giving the hostages, the Israeli hostages, before this process, we will be like in 3.5 kilometers of Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, Jabalia, eastern part of Shujaiya, and eastern part of Zaytun, eastern part of Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. Also, all will be under the IOF, unfortunately. And thus, till now, they didn't get back from and get out from this yellow zone. And a lot of news, they are saying that they will make it as if the greenish zone in the West Bank. And we are like somewhat afraid, because like me, my home is still in the area of the yellow zone, and they are still bombing and demolishing a lot of buildings and a lot of homes who are standing right now in the yellow zone. They are demolishing it and destructing it, even in the after the genocide and even after the ceasefire. So it's all propaganda. Like this home had to stand all the 2 years, and unfortunately after 2 years, because it's in the yellowish zone, they are destructing it and demolishing it, and they are saying no, it's in the yellow zone, so we have to do what to do, because like it's under the IOF like
control
power and control. Unfortunately, a lot of people like yes, a lot of people till now are in Deir al-Balah and in the western part of Khan Yunis, because they are living in those yellow zone like Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, Jabalia, and Shujaiya and Zatoun area. That's why a lot of people are still like in Deir al-Balah. They say, why to go back to Gaza City, and then we have to get this place back into our home, because it's cost a lot, unfortunately. And still, as I told you, everything is too high. The tents still enter, as they said, like it's in the market costs $400, and if you want to like get back to the home, you need a fuel like nearly also $400. So it costs a lot to the Palestinian. In the same time, the infrastructure isn't there. There is no any electricity access, there is no any Wi-Fi access, nor water access.
We got cut off a little bit there, but could you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in providing clean water for people in Gaza under these circumstances, including desalination, and what some of the donations to PAL Humanity goes towards in that effort?
Yes, we try to provide, guys, water stations here, especially in the north of Gaza, because all the water stations has been destructed by the IOF. And as you know, here in the north of Gaza, there is no water, there is no suitable or contaminated water to drink it. So a lot of people are civilian, Gazan people, they try to walk a long distance to get some liters of water to drink or to wash, to get washed. So a lot of diseases has been distributed on these camps and tents because of a shortage. So we as PAL Humanity decide to make a different stations point here in the north of Gaza to provide for these families who are in needs for their lifestyle, for their basic needs, to get washed, their food, themselves, their kids, their children, and to use it for themselves for cooking and for drinking. I want to tell you, Emma, like before before getting to the northern area, we didn't decided or think about like of water. But unfortunately, like a lot of urinary stones and renal stones been demolishing. Unfortunately, to the people even because like they are drinking a salt water, and that's like all make stones to their in their bodies. And most of the patients need surgeries even and to but because like we have in the hospitals there is like a lot of people whom are like injured patients and plenty others,
And
that's
also,
why.
and also, I want to add something. Here in Gaza, people they used to live in the shores, see. So they used to wash their clothes by the sea, the water of the sea. So because of like a lot of allergies come to.
Sorry, we're back. We're back. Go ahead.
Okay, as I said before, as I said, a lot of families they are living in the shores of the Mediterranean Sea here in Gaza because of there is so they get washed their clothes by the sea, so they get a lot of allergies come to the hospital. A lot of cases of escapees become distributed between those families, and also as Dr. Nagham said, a lot of urinary stones become we seen have become increased because of polluted water and contaminated water that is not suitable to drink it.
Even like there is no, as I mentioned before, there is no any infrastructure here in Gaza. That's why you know that water is life, and you can live without water a day. And like for the babies and children, they can't tolerate living without water, unfortunately. So that's why a lot of people use water as they live. Surrounding the water. That's why a lot of people are still in the southern area. So we want to create life in the northern area because like finally we are getting back to the north, and that's mean a lot to us. It's our land, it's our village, it's everything to us. So that's why we want to like create a life in our nation and our country and our city, our beautiful city, and like start the life to the people and make it easier to them rather than going to far places and to many kilometers far away. We are getting at to you.
Yes, as you know, all the infrastructure has been completely destroyed. So the people and the civilians, people, they try to move a long distance to get a little bit of water liters. So it's not that number. So we try to make a tracks to reach them and to be near to them.
In the north, I know that one of the other initiatives you're working on is a camp for orphan children. Can you speak a little bit more about that project?
Yes, you know that a lot of children got been like unfortunately started to be orphans because like their mothers, fathers, and the whole families maybe got unfortunately murdered or killed in the last genocide in Gaza City. So that's why we had like decided like more than 15,000 children are orphans in Gaza. That's why we had decided to why not help those orphans, to why not help those like only survivors and their families, because we as a doctors, this make a psychological effect on their psychology. Unfortunately, like they feel that they are like alone. They feel that like they're too afraid, they don't want to see anyone, not to face anyone in the world. But like when you get like an orphan and you make a camp for all orphans, like they feel like, oh, we are all orphans right now, we can stand by each other, I'm not alone, we are like sisterhood, we are brotherhood. Okay, if I lost my sister, I will find a sister in the camp. If I lost my brother, I can find a brother in the camp. And some like have mothers, but others like have fathers. So like they feel somewhat in a hope, in a like in something with love and comfort zone.
They feel
That's
like
why
one unit.
that's
Together,
why
one bond.
we wanted to create that community. I feel like we Gazans need everything. We need like the psychological effect as a doctors, but we feel it also more like not in a doctor session, but even when it will be a community session, like all are going together, all are here together. So when you are creating the whole tents are seeing at, and also there is a background, there is a ground where they can play together. They feel that we are too equal, and we can like make something to our community, and we can help also other orphans, so they can be a model role for even other orphans, and we can make it more and more bigger. And alhamdulillah, it succeeded. But also this camp had a lot of displaced because it got builded when there was like a many displacement from Beit Hanun and in the northern area of Gaza. That's why also many displacements of like many displaced people from Beit Hanun had lived on that camp also. But like it was like too much nice. It was like a community full of love, comfort, and hope. And I never had like dreamed of this, and alhamdulillah it got succeeded. Like
in this camp, we try to offer for them all of their basic needs. As you know, there is no father or mother for them, so we try to be like their older sister for them, to offer for them their medicine, their foods, their clean water, and it was like
plus there was like a school in the camp, so they can play, sing, and like make an art all together. So you feel somewhat the children don't want to talk. Like if you give him a paper and tell him to draw, he will tell you all his mentality and his thoughts on that paper, and that's works so nice. You can like treat him
read him
via art. You can treat him via music, and that's the meaning of like the psychological effect for those children. So when you are making those spaces, like in our family, we had a massacre, unfortunately, and that was like in our village in Beit Lahia, unfortunately, and had also lost my grandmother in the third day of war, and I had lost like a dear friend to mine. It was a doctor, and unfortunately, she got murdered. Her whole family, and they are.
Everybody, we're still trying to maintain our connection. I just wanted to, at the very least, get to speak to these two wonderful doctors from Pal Humanity about their work and get the word out there. Apologies about some of the cuts, but to wrap up with you here, you both, what message would you like to send to people watching this about your work? And also, what gives you hope, over 2 years into this genocide? What message do you want to send to people who are watching this right now? And what gives you hope over 2 years into this genocide?
What gives me hope as like the love of people after 2 years of genocide. To me, I and a lot right now talking about, so feel we Gazans had lost everything, but we have gained our humanity, that a lot of people in the world had lost it. Like talking about another genocide, while you are living in a genocide, this is like a thing that I can't really imagine it, but we Gazans had did it even everything. So my message to the world, that please keep your humanity, keep your love, keep your attention to everything, because we humans must stand together to gain our humanity and to keep going up. Plus, we Gazans need the world to talk more about what is happening right now in Gaza. To know that what is in the news, it's all a propaganda. Right now, the ceasefire, it's not a ceasefire. We are like sleeping and waking up on bombardments every day. Like the quadcopter is like going with us to the work and getting back to us while getting back to the work. So I want to not lose the hope with Palestinians, and to keep talking about Palestinians, because we have to keep like raising the voice for the Gazans.
For me, my message to the world is not enough to feel moved and then move on. The people of Gaza is not need only sympathy, they need voices to raise and solidarity, and that turns into action, not just only words. Share their stories, demand and end this genocide because they still said that the genocide is end, but it's not end. Last night it was the ceasefire is not completely stopped. They turn, as she said, the quadcopter is returned, and they still destroyed and demolished a lot of buildings around the yellow zone. And also, humanity is not a stance; it's not just a feeling. So please continue raise the Palestinians and the Gazans people voice.
Thank you so much. And where can people donate to PAL Humanity and support your work?
Okay, so it's our page on Instagram or via TikTok. You will find in our bio the link tree. You can go to our shuffled link and you can donate.
You can see also our work in Instagram page. If you
have any comment, like you want to donate to any project or to a certain project, you want just like I want to donate with this for this project in blah 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 dollars, and inshallah we can do it and and approve it via reels and photos and videos and many other.
We will put a link.
And I want to tell you,
go ahead.
Yes, I want to tell you, like many Gazans and Palestinians are depending right now on our ground, because right now a lot of people are in the southern area, so as you are in the northern area, we are working on ground. Like right now we are building school and we are building a clinic in the northern area. We are building a school because, like, for us as a people, as a child, the weapon for you is your education. And more educated you are, the more powerful you are, and more respected you feel that you are. So to me, I want to tell the world that our children is like any children in the world. They want to laugh, they want to learn, and they want to play as anyone. So right now we are having like a building and we are doing a school. We are having also a kindergarten on it, and from grade 1 to grade 10. And it's super nice. It's super wow. It has like a ground, and like the kids can play, can draw, and can like sing on it.
And also it will be in it, and also it will be in it a psychological doctor. As you know, there are lots of children, they face trauma by losing their families or neighborhoods or by hearing the bomb.
So yes, we will be having a psychological doctor in our school, because not only if they are lost anyone who had what 2 years of genocide, been like with PTSD or plenty other psychological effects, even depression. We all got this depressed that this won't even been ended, unfortunately. So we will be having the psychological doctor to help the students to
speak more, to know about their lives, to let them
and get out from that zone.
Yes.
And at the same time, we are building a clinic. This clinic will help the pregnant women and their process, and finally, and they are like a challenge as a pregnant woman in the war. We have a lot of pregnant women and a lot of stories, because like a lot of pregnant women had lost like their father, their husband, unfortunately, and like they have a baby born in their like body. And like think about it, you have an orphan and inside your body, and still he's not there and his father isn't there, and you had like been talking with your husband a lot of times that you want to get to have a child, and then where's your husband? He got murdered, unfortunately. So that's too like heavy and too bad. So we are like standing with them, telling giving them the aid and giving them everything they want, so we can stand with them and telling them that you are not alone. We're having an ultrasound, we're having pharmacy, laboratory, and also like up and coming future days we'll having we want to make a department, a laboratory department, an obs and gyna department where they can like make a labor and add, and finally it would be like a complete clinic, inshallah.
Well, we're with you. I want to support your work as much as possible, and the audience, when they're watching this, I hope that they go and support PAL Humanity if they can. We will put a link down below to all of the fundraising efforts and where people can learn more about your work, the mutual aid work that the two of you are doing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
And thank you, Emma, for like hosting us and hosting us in your like this the majority rapper. We love your trust and we love your audience. Thank you all for hearing us and for keeping with us till the end and for your patience for our internet cutoff.
Yes, it's
Oh,
our
come
pleasure,
on.
Emma, to join you.
We don't need to be patient with the internet. We understand it. The internet's the least of our concerns here. Thank you so much. Appreciate you both.
You are welcome.
Thank you. We are back. Thank you everybody for listening to that interview. I know there's some technical issues, but I thought it was pretty important that we get it out there. And we're getting some really nice IMs. People who donated. Noel from San Francisco. These people are angels. $100. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Radical leftist Hoosier heroes. Dizzle McFizzle, praise God for these wonderful heroines. As socialist Christian, I'm praying for their safety and demanding the U.S. cut off weapons to Israel and for an international peace, keeping force to occupy Israel to impose a one secular democratic states with rights for all. May we be Allah's tools in this work. Amen. Agreed. And with we'll read some more of those IMs in the fun half, but we do have Brandon Sutton with us now. So wanted to introduce our friend. We have a special clip saved just for you, and I'm sure you know what it is. But good to see you, Brandon.
I have an inkling.
It's been too long because we had the tort stuff last week, so we didn't get to have you on. But what's been happening on the discourse? Catch us up.
Well, yeah, honestly, it's never been a better time to catch up with the discourse because Candace Owens is back from her sabbatical. And so we've been catching up with the hottest goss in the, Charlie Kirk situation. I think, honestly, it's kind of been like a little bit pushed to the side with everything that's been going on with the shutdown and Trump's other various machinations. But she hasn't let up on the beat. And I think, sorry.
I was just going to say the horse is absolutely out of the barn when it comes to Charlie Kirk assassination conspiracies. David Griscom and I talked about it on Left Reckoning about Candace Owens, basically about Steven Crowder's breathy sort of panic attack because Candace Owens pretty clearly seemed to imply that they, meaning, I don't know if it's Israel or Trump, but kind of implying Trump now, had Charlie Kirk killed. And that's why they gave him a boulevard. And also, I don't know if you've seen the Charlie Kirk's chief of staff conspiracy about him supposedly like getting on the phone right after that. The Charlie Kirk show, like guys who are still in charge of it, did a whole 10-minute video saying how dare anybody. I mean, I think he probably. I don't think he was calling saying the eagle has landed or whatever.
Okay, but see, just to your point, and it's something we addressed when we were talking about on my stream today, because that was what she was talking about in the video we watched today. What people need to realize is that just like Candace, everyone who surrounded Charlie was a grifter. And so in some ways, Charlie is going to be their MLK Jr. in the sense that they're going to weaponize his death and life to suit whatever political or personal agenda that they have at the current moment, just like Republicans do with MLK, just like a lot of people do with MLK. And so, like, it's not suspicious that people who were surrounding Charlie are making up lies about what he believed or what they were up to when it was going on and how close they were, because of course they are, because they're looking to use it for like their own personal development in the sense of like pushing their brand. And so, yeah, now that Charlie's gone, like who's going to be the next king of the Renaissance Fair? And that's where we're at. So it does create fertile ground for Candace, who's trying to like sow doubt over who was involved and like whether the traditional narrative is to be believed, because a lot of people probably are lying, but not for the reason she's implying, but just because they're looking for attention. The same reason she's doing this. She's also lying right now about this situation. Right. But that speaks to the people that Charlie surrounded himself with, because ultimately he would be doing the same thing. So honestly, this is the best way to honor him, I suppose.
That's the thing is, I was wondering, like, as I heard one of Charlie's friends saying, like, how dare anybody, talk about this and Erica and all these people that way. Well, you guys did a whole show casting aspersions or doing conspiracies about the guy who broke into Pelosi's house and smashed her husband's head with a hammer.
Right.
Like, this is karma.
Yeah, they love spreading conspiracies, and it's not karma. Honestly, it's more just like this is what they do. This is their bread and butter. If anything, they were behaving in any other way, it would be weird. And I think that a large portion of their audience, and maybe people who are like just getting a glimpse into them from the outside for the first time, just don't realize that they're shameless. They're shameless. We know that they're shameless. We know that they're shameless grifters.
Absolutely.
And this is how they behave.
Yeah, the well said. Okay, I guess we'll head into the fun half then. We don't have Matt Binder yet, but check out the Leftist Mafia. Check out his newsletter, his channel for his latest streams and such. So sorry. I'm so sorry. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning? My bad.
I didn't even realize why you cut back.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We can cut that part out, right?
Breaking news.
Yeah.
We cut back out of the amateurs
intro.
Fun half intro.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Left Reckoning got a great show, and actually there's going to be, frankly, some format changes coming up very soon on Left Reckoning and some big announcements. So you want to get in on, I guess, the floor before the renovations start? I don't know how this metaphor works. But patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right. Now, sorry for the tease. See you in the fun half.